So it wasn't like a delightful place, for sure. So they decided, let's knock it down. I think one of the main corporate people involved was Disney, and they, in addition, knocked down some actual real theaters, and they cleaned it up. But then when you want, the United States, everyone who didn't live in New York hated New York. I mean, New York was hated, like it was a foreign, power. And so they weren't going to come to New York, because in New York, there was New York, which is full of New Yorkers and the worst people. So what they did was, what do these people like? And it turns out what they like is what they already have. So this always did surprise me. Like, I used to think, really? Don't you have an Olive Garden where you live? And they would like look at the lights they would put up, they put up all these signs. They would like stare, and I think, how many places in the United States don't have electricity? Because they're just stunned by this. And it worked. And the year before the pandemic, something like 62 million tourists came to New York. Now, this is a city where already 8.5 million people live. So 62 million is too many. It's about 62 million too many. And so they made everything for them, including the actual Broadway theater. The theater itself changed, because they don't want to see like a play. That's for like New Yorkers. So they put on these kind of plays where things fall from the ceiling, helicopters come, and that's what they did. So it completely changed Broadway, which I myself loathe, and it was very successful. They built this thing in the middle of Times Square, these kind of red stairs. Like when they first built it, I thought, where are these stairs going? I believe that stairs should lead you somewhere. Like, the place it should lead you is upstairs. But when you get upstairs, there should be something there. But here, you get up these stairs, there's nothing there except other tourists. And they sit on these stairs and take pictures of each other. It just became totally unbearable, to the point that if I had to go to Times Square to the theater, which would be like 1 or 2 times a year, I would have to go. Sometimes I would plot my journey, because I walk most places. Well, if I walk like to Harlem and then around, yes, it'll add like 8 miles, but I won't have to walk across, that street. So yes, then the pandemic happened. No one came. No one left their apartments except me. I did leave my apartment. I walked around. There was no one in the street.
Did you go to Times Square?
I went to Times Square. I went to, after, I don't remember how long, but maybe after a week of not leaving my apartment, I decided I'm going to walk around. I'm going to see, it'll be interesting. But in fact, it wasn't interesting. It was too sad. And I actually did not find sadness interesting. I mean, I did have some Russian grandparents, but not enough to find sadness interesting. I walked like across town. I walked up 5th Avenue, across 42nd Street, down 7th Avenue, thereby passing numerous landmarks. The Empire State Building, the New York Public Library. The New York Public Library, it was the thing I was most shocked by, because the New York Public Library, when it closes, which it used to do at night, they have these bronze doors that close at night. So I'd seen it close, but it would be like at 2 in the morning. But this was like 4 in the afternoon. And I couldn't believe it was closed. And I stood in front of it, there was no one around. And I stood in front of it, like yelling, open the library. How can you close the library? I mean, it's one thing, okay, Macy's was closed, I don't care. But I walked all the way up, across, I looked up at Times Square. There were a bunch of cops in Times Square, that's all I saw. Cop cars. That's the last time there were cops in New York, by the way. There's no cops anymore, you never see them. Their feelings are very hurt. They had no idea people didn't like them. We haven't seen hide or hair of them since Black Lives Matter, they're gone. They just get paid. Not vaccinated, but paid. So...
Well, science is hard. Science is hard.
And so I just stood there and I thought, this is what I've always wanted. But I didn't mean like this. Of course, by this point in my life, you think I would realize when you get what you always want, it's always like this. I mean, it doesn't usually entail, 700,000 people dying, but I walked past Macy's, closed. And I heard something they only heard one other time in my life. Like, on September 11th, that night, you weren't allowed out of your apartment, but I did. I had to walk all the way downtown. And that night, for the first time in my life, I heard my own footsteps. You never would hear that in New York, it's too noisy. And I heard then. And this is one thing you do not want to hear in New York. Like, I'm not a fan of noise, but there's, there has to be something between you hear your own footsteps and you can't hear anything else. And so New York was like that for quite a while. I walked around all the time.